Administration's Washington Division, overseeing the agency's intelligence activities in Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and parts of West Virginia. She also works with other leaders in the law enforcement and intelligence communities and provides guidance to policymakers and other agencies on drug-related matters in the region. She is also a mother whose daughter recently graduated from Chantilly High School.
Good evening, everybody. I am so honored to be here. When Tarun first reached out to our community outreach coordinator at my office, the Drug Enforcement Administration in downtown Washington, I had no idea at that time that another Chantilly High School student was in my future, and I very, very much appreciated being asked to come tonight and participate with such a talented, gifted group of students who I see have a sizable fan club in the audience already based on the applause that they've been getting. Truly spectacular to watch them with their talents. So I'm going to talk to you just for a short period of time to dovetail off what the doctor was talking about a few moments ago on two major topics. Being from the Drug Enforcement Administration, my job is law enforcement, and I can't change that. I don't want to change that. I've spent 22 years doing intelligence in drug law enforcement, and I love it, and I still wake up every morning wanting to go to work, and that's a wonderful thing. And that piece of passion is going to be the first part of what I'd like to talk to you about. When I was speaking with Tarun and his father getting ready for this event this evening, one of the things that I said that I very much wanted to speak to is the need for parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, counselors to speak honestly and frankly with teenagers and young adults in their lives about drugs. I'm not going to discuss vaping much this evening. I think we've talked a little bit about this already. But part of what where I think the disconnect is when we try to talk to our teenagers, the students in our lives, the young people in our lives, is that we resort to things that are scary, or we resort to conversations that are overly simplistic. And our kids are smart. Our students are smart. Our teenagers are intelligent people. And they are also, as the doctor mentioned, people who are just learning where they fit in the world, and they are scared and they are anxious, and they do worry about whether their fellow students like them, whether their teachers like them, whether the other meaningful adults in their lives like them, whether the girl or boy sitting next to them likes them. And so we as parents and educators are in a position where we too often resort to just saying that drugs are bad and vaping is bad and drinking beer at a party on a Friday night is bad, and that's the overly simplistic side of the conversation we have with the teenagers in our lives. The other option is that we sometimes just try to scare them and we say drugs can kill you, or if you drink a beer at a party on a Friday night, you could die in a drunk driving accident. And that's just the scary part of the world. It's not an untrue part necessarily, but it's only fear. And we're not giving the students and teenagers in our lives the credit they deserve for being thinking people who make decisions to use drugs or use alcohol or vape for very specific reasons that the doctor discussed before me. So one of the things that I would like to encourage all of you to do with the teenagers in your lives, and encourage the teenagers who are committed to doing events like they are doing tonight, and use them as the coaches and the forward voice for your families and for your communities and for their colleges and for their schools, to say it's important to be honest. And there are a lot of different ways that we can get to an honest conversation, but part of that is to admit to the students, admit to the teenagers in your lives, yes, I understand that you get high because being high feels good or relieves you of social anxiety. And the other piece of that puzzle, as the doctor talked about, is to diagnose the problem behind or the motivation behind why that teenager decided to use a drug or vape or drink alcohol to begin with, and maybe it's social anxiety and a need to fit in, and maybe it is because we have to redirect their passions. I so appreciate what one of the hosts said before I came up on stage just now. She almost did the hallmark piece of my speech for me. We, as the adults in our kids' lives, have to help them find that thing that they are passionate about, that thing that makes them high, that is not drugs, that is not alcohol, that is not vaping, the thing that gives them a place to socially engage, a place to socially fit in, that doesn't have to do with the crowd who's wearing the jeans with the windows, or they're vaping, or they're doing, or what he said, upside down hat, backwards hat. Who's not doing that? Find the passion in the group that does accept them. My daughter is a graduate of Chantilly High School, is one of the organizers, one of the hosts mentioned. She is actually much more recently a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University School of the Arts, and she found her passion with help from me, her father, and other meaningful adults in her life when she was in her early teens, and that passion is theater. We are responsible for helping our children and our teenagers find the passion that is going to be the substitute for being high in a group. And sometimes we think because we have a certain demographic identity, or we have a certain economic identity, or we have a certain religious identity, that we are exempt from having to worry about our kids turning to drugs. But we're not. There is no economic caste or economic stratus that protects your child from being tempted to get high. There is no religious conviction that will be so strong that they don't go to a friend that they want to fit in with and try to do what that friend does. So, although I am from the Drug Enforcement Administration, as a mother, that is the frank need that I can say that we need, the frank conversation I think we need to have with the teenagers in our lives. That said, because I am with the Drug Enforcement Administration, there are some hard truths we do need to talk to our teenagers about. Marijuana is one of the hard truths, because there is so much in the media now and so much going on in the United States right now with various states legalizing recreational marijuana, that what gets overlooked in that conversation, as the doctor pointed out, is that there are far more long-term negative effects to the use of cannabis than the states who are legalizing recreational marijuana are taking into account. And one of the most frightening things, one of the things I, from the DEA, give you permission to scare your children and your teenagers about, is the development of the brain. And we are expecting a lot from our teenagers to listen to that conversation, because we are asking them to be forward-thinking in a way that maybe they don't have the capacity to be. But the lack of brain development as a teenager has such long-term effects when they do become young adults, when they do go over the age of 25 and the frontal cortex is fully developed. That's the scary thing, number one, you are allowed to tell your children. That is, as I say, one of the, I try not to encourage you to scare them, but that's one thing I do encourage you to scare them with, because it is medically the truth, it is scientifically valid, and it gives them credit for being the intelligent people that they are. The other thing is a little bit more difficult to talk about, but it is fentanyl. I can't see you guys very well because of the lights. I'm going to try to step up. Can I get a show of hands about anybody in the audience who has heard of fentanyl? It's in the news all the time now. And the thing that I want all of you to know, and I want any teenager in this room to know, and I want all of you to try to talk about as much as possible where the scary part of drugs is concerned, is fentanyl. Because it used to be that fentanyl was something that doctors prescribed to cancer patients who were reaching the end of life, or geriatric patients who were experiencing long-term chronic pain. I want you to be able to scare your kids with this message, because nowadays we are finding fentanyl in everything in the market. I have been doing this job for a long time, and I have watched fentanyl go from a pharmaceutical drug that you got from doctors and in hospitals that made its way sometimes into the regular market. And now we are finding fentanyl in cocaine. We are finding fentanyl in heroin. We are finding fentanyl in pills that look like the pills your doctor prescribes for you. We are finding fentanyl that is disguised to look like marijuana. We have found fentanyl that is in methamphetamine. We have found fentanyl that is in virtually any drug that your child, your teenager could potentially come across or choose to use. Just a couple of months ago, we had a rash of overdoses. The users were generally not young, they were in their 20s. But 12 people died over a single Friday night into a Saturday morning in Norfolk, Virginia, because they used cocaine that was laced with fentanyl. They didn't know it was laced with fentanyl, they were just using cocaine for fun. Fentanyl will kill you. Fentanyl will kill your teenagers, it will kill you. And if you're using something prescribed by your doctor, then you can, we hope, can trust that. But too many kids now are experimenting with pills that look like pills that you would get from a doctor, that in every way, shape, or form might be thought to be something that is a legitimate medicine, that instead somebody unsavory on the black market has mixed with fentanyl, and it is killing people. And so I give you permission to scare your teenagers with that message. I could talk for hours about what sort of drugs are in high schools in Virginia. I could talk for hours about what kinds of drugs your kids are encountering in universities in Virginia. I don't have hours to talk to you, so I will leave you with just a couple of things. When I first came in this evening, I brought with me a box that has a lot of material that I encourage you to take with you to your churches, to your schools, to your community centers. There are posters that the teenagers can use to hang in their high schools on the walls or on bulletin boards. There are pamphlets about all of the various drugs that are available, believe it or not, on the open market, very easily accessible to almost everybody in this room. And there are also some goodies, cell phone wallets, the little cell phone pop things that attach to the back of your phone. There are keychains, there are bracelets, there are all kinds of items in the cardboard box in the back. The other thing I would like to leave you with is 2 educational resources. The first is to go to Discovery Education. DEA has teamed up with Discovery Network to do science-based educational programs. They are available for you, your teenagers, as young as elementary school age. We have customized programs for elementary, middle, and high school age students. It is Discovery Education. Go to it online, and they have customizable curriculums that you can use in both home and in school settings that are science-based, will not insult anybody's intelligence, and will not just tell things too simply or in just scary terms. And the other resource is Get Smart About Drugs, all one word.org. And that also has a lot of educational resources in it, pamphlets and brochures that you can print up yourselves if you're interested and take with you wherever you need them. I have also left my contact information with the family, the Donapati family that asked me to, that invited me to be here this evening. I encourage anybody that would like to talk further on any of these issues to get in touch with them, and I'm very, very happy to talk with anybody further. Again, thank you so much for the invitation and for letting me be part of this program.
Thank you, Ms. Lofland, for taking the time to come and speak to us. I was very moved about how you said that drug use is not indicated by a specific race or religion. I totally agree with that.
All right, so now we're gonna transition to some more songs.